And we're live. Thanks for joining Hex Therapy Live tonight. We've got an exciting story. There was a Bitcoin hacker who basically, I think, ended up with sudden wealth syndrome. And so we're going to review the evidence. We're going to try to see how this sudden wealth syndrome manifested and much, much more. So welcome to Hex Therapy Live, and we'll get started right after this.
It's from ALLin of HexTherapy.live. I like Maddie. Maddie tries to make the world a healthier place. He's a mental health professional. He's done research. There's nothing that a human being could do better than try and heal his fellow man.
So what is this billionaire energy that causes people to have a certain syndrome that, has its whole psychological condition named after it? Well, we're going to get down to the story. So Heather Morgan is one of the alleged perpetrators of the Bitfinex hack in 2016. And at the time, it was only several $100,000 worth of Bitcoin that was stolen from the exchange. But as we heard in the news this week, the US government seized all of those addresses and, and basically arrested this Heather Morgan and her husband or partner. And then it was discovered that she had all kinds of TikTok videos and some sort of rap career. And I've heard different takes on this, so I will let you decide. But first, please like and subscribe without taking into consideration this next part, because this is going to be the music that she created herself. So I'm going to share this here. Let's check it out. Let's see what she's got.
Never forget, weirdest is most original. This song is for the entrepreneurs and hackers.
Yeah, the Bitcoin that was stolen at the time of arrest, I guess, was worth over $4 billion. So this is somebody who made more than $4 billion stealing crypto from the users of Bitfinex. And that's another reason why not using centralized exchanges is important. It's another reason we've seen on this show before that there was a hex whale who got hacked. And that hack of the hex whale, Hex 19, it was very similar in that the hacker got access to cloud files. In this case, with Heather Morgan, the Bitfinex hack billionaire, she kept her private key, private seed word strings in a file that she kept on her cloud drive. And so that's how the US government ended up retrieving the funds. Of course, because Bitcoin likes to think that it's immutable. So yeah, let's check it out.
Hackers, all the misfits and smart slackers. Russell Khan, the Versace better win. Come real far, but don't know where I'm headed. Motherfucking crocodile of Wall Street. Silver on my fingers and boots on my feet. Always be a goat, not a goddamn sheep. Email me, fuck your message at the beep. Beep, 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 beep. Spirit of a revolutionary, power of a dictator. Love to be contrary, but I'm sly like a gator. I got pilot blood, I'm a real risk taker. Pirate riding the flood, badass money maker. Grandmother crocodile, weirder than an X-File. Free fire, silver, so sexy when I slither. Sparkle on my little finger, hell of arousal ear to ear. Poised to throw a zinger, playing on their worst fear. Russell Khan, the Versace better win. Come real far, but don't know where I'm heading. Motherfucking crocodile of Wall Street. Silver on my fingers and boots on my feet. Always be a goat, not a goddamn sheep. Email me, fuck your message at the beep. Beep, 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 beep. Razzlecon's the name, that hot grandma you really wanna bang. Always run the guilt game ever since I was 15. I'm many things. A rapper, an economist, a journalist, a writer, a CEO, and a dirty hoe. Better than most writers, creepier than most girls, weirder than most rappers, but I still rock pearls. Razzlecon, the Versace better win. Come real far, but don't know where I'm heading. Motherfucking crocodile of Wall Street. Silver on my fingers and boots on my feet. Always be a goat, not a goddamn sheep. Email me, fuck your message at the beep. Beep, 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 beep. The Versace better win, got the bling that win. With the Berber might, I'll win every fight. My swag ain't just lit, Silver really packs a hit. Bobby fashion so legit. Pussy bitches saying stop, about to pop, ain't gon' quit. They say Raz a filthy bitch, but they're jealous of my tits. My eyes, my nose, my bling, my clothes, these rings, my hose. Everyone knows I don't fuck with no bros. Unless they're gay, gays don't count, they're exempt. Razzlecon, the Versace better win. Come real far, but don't.
Okay, I'm sorry, but the Hex community has to see this because this is what we will turn into if we don't treat our sudden wealth syndrome. No jokes, people. You know, once you have $4 billion sitting there, then you know, you might try to make a rap music video as well.
Don't know where I'm heading.
We'll get the commentary here in a minute.
Silver on my fingers and boots on my feet. Always be a goat, not a goddamn sheep. Email me, fuck your message at the beep. Beep, 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 beep. Everyone worries too much about what's proper, but not Raz, no shame, that don't stop her. Blindly following rules is for fools. Instead, I work the edge cases with my tools. Awkward as fuck. Act shit like a whirling dervish, better duck. This bitch is Turkish, don't pressure luck. ISIS can't handle them Kurdish. Fuck your Jane Austen romance, rather be taking a taxidermy class. Prefer Vietnam over France, doing my jerk off dance. Looking like a gay male stripper, but my synesthesia world is even trippier.
Okay, I'm sorry I had to subject you to that, but that was really important. I was proving a point that, you know, when people have billions of dollars at their disposal, I think it's hard for them to make the same decisions that they used to make. And this opens up a greater truth about what it means to become suddenly wealthy, because for most people, that's an endpoint. And they don't give much thought past living happily ever after with as much money as necessary. But in fact, the research in psychology shows that the quality of, well, the satisfaction in life of people, the amount of depression, the amount of adaptation that people have in their lives, it really doesn't go up that much after you get over about $80,000 to $120,000 per year annual income. And that's strange. I think that that's really strange because you would think if money was good for people and if money solved all of your problems, then you would think that, the richer you were, the happier you would be and the less problems you'd have. But that's not true. Mo money, mo problems, right? And that was the case here for Heather Morgan, I think. Wow, gosh, a lot of people are being pretty harsh. I mean, Trevon said that he liked the rap. I wonder if, depending on what your rank is and in Hex. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding. But seriously, I think we can poke fun and we can make fun of this person. But at the end of the day, what is it that you have to live for when you become a billionaire? And if you don't have the right people, places, and things around you, I call that your environment. If you don't have the right mental environment and the right social environment, the right work environment set up for yourself, then you will, descend into the depths of poor music video making or worse, right? In this case, Heather Morgan and company got caught, right? And having a social media presence probably wasn't the smartest idea. But this is one of the biggest heists of all time. Maybe, it's up there, a $4 billion hack. And so, again, I think it really begs the question, what is the Hex community going to do to prepare for, all 3,000 millionaires currently to become billionaires? I predict that there will be more Hex billionaires than there are other billionaires in the world, given that there's only 2,500 billionaires in the world currently, whereas there are tens of millions of millionaires just in the United States. And so I think when you get to a certain point where you don't have to worry about money anymore, then people have different reactions. And again, it's going to be based on your people, places, and things. It's going to be based on what keeps you grounded. It's going to be based on, were you already living a certain lifestyle, or are you going to have to adjust to living a higher lifestyle? People oftentimes are defined by how they spend their time. If you meet somebody new, you might ask them, what do you do for a living? And, what do you do for work? And that's because humans spend about a third of their lives or more working. And so, I mean, the majority of people, I'd say 99% of people on earth, maybe more than that, are basically owned by their jobs. They're owned by their debt. They've been living in a society where borrowing from your future self is the best you can do. So you can at least buy things at today's prices before they go up higher tomorrow, or every 10 or 15 years, the price of things double because of inflation, because of money printing, because of the greed and corruption of the ruling class, the government, the central bankers, whatever you want to call them, the people calling the shots. And unfortunately, I can't tell you that Hex or Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of these new monetary systems are going to lead to more equality. And Concoda writes about this on Medium and Substack. That the technocratic elites are going to do a worse job of maintaining social order and, making things fair throughout society. So I think it's really important for the Hex community, especially, and for this audience, many of whom are multimillionaires or on their way to being multimillionaires. It's kind of our job to be looking around and seeing, what are our people, places, and things? What are our values? What's driving our behavior, right? For Heather Morgan, it seemed like she wanted to be a rapper. And so when she had $4 billion, like, she had FU money, she thought. Now, so that comes with a certain lifestyle increase, and it comes with a certain mind fuck, because, at the end of the day, it can be disappointing for people to realize that, that they don't have to struggle anymore. And that sounds super contradictory, but in a lot of ways, it's through our struggle that we achieve meaning in life. And so, it's called rich people problems or first world problems whenever you complain about things that, you know, most people don't have to deal with because they're not wealthy. Well, I think that the world is going to need, uh, a clear path and probably plenty of education when it comes to how can we transition our society from people who are in a scarcity mindset to being in an abundance mindset. And part of what that's going to mean is that the new billionaires and the new millionaires, um, we're going to have to decide how we spend our time. We're going to have to decide what we stand for. And if we want to, get accepted by the legacy financial system and, all become registered money transmitters and open up fiat on ramps and exchanges, that might open us up to certain pressures. It might cause us to start being like the Bitcoin billionaires that came before us, who, in my opinion, kind of sold out. They keep spinning their narrative of, a utopia, but at the end of the day, they're worse grifters than what they accuse people in Hex of being, right? And I can kind of see it both ways. I can kind of see why the Bitcoiners, they don't like Hex because we have such an attitude, because they don't hold any. And so it's a reality that they don't really want to acknowledge. And not everybody has time to do research on every new coin that comes out. And so on one hand, I can kind of cut them some slack, but still at the end of the day, the people in Bitcoin, they're promoting a technology that they haven't looked into all the way. I can tell you this, they've been drinking the Kool-Aid. They've been reading article after article that is just, serving up, I don't want to say misinformation, but just like things that are distracting. Like, who cares what the government's doing? Who cares what China's doing with crypto? Like, if you are really in a crypto that's immutable, then you wouldn't care about that. Who cares what coins are getting listed on centralized exchanges? That shouldn't be your goal. So, in a lot of ways, the Bitcoin movement lost its way when it had to create fiat on-ramps. And at this moment, the Hex community, is creating bridge protocols, right? That may, in and of itself, solve the fiat onboarding problem much more elegantly, because then, as long as people can still put money into Ethereum and Bitcoin, then you could always bridge value into the Pulse network and into, directly into Hex. What's the difference between if I walk somebody through on the phone how to buy Ethereum on Coinbase and then download MetaMask and then, go to ethhex.com and swap it and then stake? That could all be one button that people press, right? So the technology to have a decentralized exchange, it didn't exist when Bitcoin was created. It only came about when, the Uniswap protocol launched a couple of years ago around the same time as Hex. So the leap forward that we're having in technology, again, it's relevant to this discussion of what kind of billionaires are we going to be if given that responsibility, if given that privilege. I still think Hex can fail. I think that Hex fails when people lose sight of what the use case is. Hex is a socially enforced protocol, just like every other crypto, right? Humans give things value by believing in them and by putting their economic energy into things. If we encapsulate T-shares and make them tradable, that causes Hex to fail, in my opinion, from what it should be. And I don't care if Staker App's doing it. I don't care if Hedron's doing it. I don't care if Trevon is doing it. I don't care if Craig Wright is doing it. Only thing I care about is whether Richard is doing it, right? Because I kind of have a loyalty to stick with what I know, in the sense that I know that storing value over time is valuable, and that having a blockchain in order to keep track of that staking on the primary layer with the primary coin, that's what makes Hex work. And so it bothers me when I see people losing that use case or not understanding. Because don't get me wrong, people can think that they're geniuses because they become millionaires overnight, because they have sudden wealth syndrome. That's a major thing that can happen. Heather Morgan thought that she was a genius when she started making rap videos and stealing $4 billion from Bitfinex users. Probably not a genius move, as defined by she's probably going to go to prison. A lot of the people who are central bankers, a lot of the people who are running leveraged exchanges in Bitcoin, in my opinion, they're doing criminal things too. They're creating businesses that are negative sum games that cause people to lose everything. And then they take that money that people lost and they reinvest it in creating more victims, right? It's like a Ponzi is bad enough, but at what point does the actual dollar system become defined as a Ponzi? Because again, the dollar is assuming that you have GDP in the base layer. So anyway, the bottom line is that, if we want to create a better money, if we want to fix the money to fix the world, then I think that's not going to happen automatically. I think that the fact that all this stuff has magically aligned in the first place is truly incredible. And it is mystical. It's like when I drove the Hex DeLorean to the 5555 tour and it passed the 5,555th mile that it ever drove in the past 40 years. And I pulled over on the side of the road with my buddy who was in the car from the Crypto Sparbox team. And I did a 5,555 Hex stake for 5,555 days live on a stream. And then Richard goes and buys the largest diamond in the world this past week that not only came from outer space, because it's the Osbornite in this meteor, basically this meteoric diamond that used to be called the Enigma, but Richard's renamed it to the Hex.com diamond. And when this thing came out of the earth, as all diamonds, it's in the rough. And I think based on all that I've read about the Hex.com diamond, when it came out of the earth, it was about 800 carats. And it's beyond the miracle that you have this diamond that's about 2.5 billion years old showing up on Earth, it's the osbornite that's embedded in the crystalline structure that proves that it comes from space, because you don't get that material deep inside of the Earth, where diamonds are made here on Earth. It came out of the ground as 800 carats, and somehow, through some miracle, the people who are cutting the diamond were able to cut it down to 555.55 carats with exactly 55 facets. And if you can imagine, it's hard enough. You have to measure twice and cut once, but to achieve that level of precision, and then for the creator of Hex, which of course has the 5555 numerology built into it as the max length stake, that's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible that people are locking up their money for so long, but we have to remember why we're doing that is to delay gratification, to not be able to sell our time locks early. Otherwise, that defeats the purpose. So as you become a millionaire or a billionaire in Hex, I think we have 5 billionaires and 2,000 to 3,000 millionaires so far. And as you work your way up the ranks, it's important to remember what got you there and not to be an asshole. And so, when you buy your freedom, you get to the point where now you have to learn a new skill, which is how to find the right direction in your life. And a lot of people, when they get to the top, they feel lonely, they feel depressed, they feel paranoid. They doubt themselves. They don't doubt the people around them. They get treated worse by people, which makes them want to treat others worse, right? These are sudden wealth syndrome problems. They get disillusioned by society. They give up on others. They stop creating community. They isolate themselves, right? This is what billionaires do because of their environment, because of the fact that what they own owns them. The majority of millionaires or billionaires have their value not in cash, which is a depreciating asset, but in some kind of market that has capital controls on it, that has regulation. And, so a lot of billionaires, they have a board of directors to answer to. They have, lots of regulators breathing down their throat. So even when we look at some of the richest people in the world, like Elon Musk, he got in trouble for trying to wreck the people who were shorting his company, back when he threatened to take it private back in, what was that, 2016, 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. Yeah. So I think we have to keep in mind, the billionaires and millionaires that have become suddenly wealthy in Hex and in other cryptocurrencies need support, need to come up with the right ethos, I think. I think that helping others, building community, self-improvement, delaying gratification, being a long-term thinker, creating new systems, trying to work on the hardest problem that you can solve, pushing through the frustrations of your new sudden wealth. Lottery winners famously lose everything because they aren't prepared, because they aren't time locked, because it's hard to make the transition. But if you're suffering from sudden wealth syndrome or plan to at some point in your life, it's important for you to remember to stay humble, to take your time telling people, get practiced up at telling people one by one instead of telling everybody all at once. Remember that you can't help everybody. Giving away all your money actually doesn't solve the things that you imagine it would. That's one overreaction that people have to Sunwell syndrome, is trying to give away all their money. The things that you buy usually don't make you happy. Sometimes the things you buy end up owning you. Sometimes you finance a music video that people will take in a lot of different ways. But in the end, I think Hex provides a better system for people to ladder out their mad gains and to keep participating in, this get rich slow scheme. Let's see. So there was another point I wanted to make. And it has to do with how we place the blame on different currencies. So I'll take the example of onboarding somebody into Hex. So if you want to onboard somebody into Hex, you know that you're going to probably send them to an exchange where they can trade their dirty fiat for shiny, untouchable crypto and the magic internet money. So maybe you send them to Gemini or to Coinbase. I mean, if it's a small amount of money that they want to onboard, you might even send them to a Bitcoin ATM. Because let me tell you, when you send people anywhere to get crypto, it isn't easy. That means that there's still opportunity and there's still a lot of gatekeeping in the mix. It's fascinating to me that most people subconsciously come away from that experience of trying to buy crypto for the first time and they say, oh, it was so hard to buy the crypto. And they blame the crypto for not working efficiently. If you buy crypto on Coinbase, they oftentimes hold it for a week. And this is probably because they don't want people hacking your bank account and then dumping it all into crypto and then sending it away very quickly. But still, it's fascinating to me that instead of blaming the dollar for trapping you in its ecosystem and for being corrupt, that we kind of place the blame on crypto. People normally do when they're not fully aware of how the system works. So even though you think you have dollars that you control, in fact, it's very controlled how the dollar moves, and it's oftentimes up to your bank and credit cards and PayPal and all of these things have the government all over them. Because the US government fights terrorism and war and maintains its global power, not through soldiers anymore, but through bankers, and by limiting the ability of people to transfer funds, to be able to withdraw more than $10,000 in cash without going through an approval process, without the KYC, AML, know your customer, anti-money laundering policies that your bank usually doesn't tell you about. So, I think in the same regard, I think it's easy to blame crypto for fiat's shortcomings. I think it's easy to blame Hex for looking like a Ponzi versus admitting the truth that at the end of the day, the dollar needs more users, it needs more buyers, it needs more economic energy pumped into it in order for it to maintain its value. Whereas Hex, in fact, incentivizes people to keep playing the game, to rebuy their T shares, or to not have the same share in the system. And so, because shares are deflationary over time, and because that's the only thing that prints new Hex, Hex is not a Ponzi. And if you think it's a Ponzi, then you can still criticize Hex, and you could say, "Oh, that Richard, he uses a straw man argument to say that," which, by the way, if you're comparing two things, yeah, maybe that counts as a straw man argument. But at the same time, comparing things can be very useful. That's used in the scientific method. It's used in critical thinking and reasoning, right? So just because you can label something as a fallacy doesn't mean that it's irrelevant or that it shouldn't be part of the supporting evidence. Maybe before Bitcoin existed, you could say that magic internet money was not a real thing, but you can't make the argument that you have to cash out in order for it to be worth anything, because if you value your wealth in Hex, or which is the liquid version of T shares, if you value your wealth in this asset that rewards you for being more long-term thinking, for having a financial plan of holding that benefits other users by increasing the price because it makes the current supply more scarce. I don't think we have things backwards. I don't think that hexicans have been misled into thinking that inflation is good for the system. I think that there are a lot of bad arguments out there, but we've used our talking points as much as we can. We've educated people what is a Ponzi scheme, but a lot of times when you're living in a certain reality and that's your basis, it's hard for you to abstract to different objections and different points of view, different objects or relations. Object relations theory is a part of psychology, and it says, like, you basically are often thinking about things in terms of the objects that you learned early on. And so at the end of the day, though, we all think of prices in terms of the dollar. We think of our savings in terms of the dollar. We think of our crypto in terms of the dollar. Someday that might change to where we value our wealth in something that isn't bad for us. And at that point, then I predict humans will be better to each other and to themselves. It's going to take a conscious effort. It's going to take more hashing this out. No pun intended. Because, we might already be in an environment ourselves that's proof of stake, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to do some work in order to educate others. Because I think at the end of the day, we have enough economic input into Hex to maintain the price, to maintain the selling at this current point. And what did we see before? The OA was buying up coins during the adoption amplifier. The OA was buying up coins after the big payday. The system is operating as designed, which is that the whales are incentivized to create new whales, and then and that's part of how the fair launch happens. That's the problem with all cryptocurrency. Everything that was created after Bitcoin didn't have a good launch mechanism. It didn't have the best game theory to launch it. Hex and Pulse X and the incentive token are going to be the perfect combination of game theoretical incentives. Think of the entire crypto space as being only Richard Hart projects, plus where we connect to the fiat system, which is Bitcoin and Ethereum bridges. And then they can worry about the regulation. They can worry about being owned by centralized exchanges. They can worry about Brian Armstrong getting his door kicked down by government agencies. But like, the future of crypto is to not probably have fiat on-ramps like that, where money gets pooled and creates problems, where your GBTC, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust Premium, ends up holding back your price because because supposedly you can never sell if you're in this instrument, but that doesn't mean that you're not creating paper coins. It's important for people to be able to sell. Or to lock it up. You can't have both. And that's what we're seeing with all this wrapped stuff that doesn't make any sense. It's like, that's a cool story that you can lock things up in a trust and it never gets sold. But the real way to lock things up and never get sold is called, check, time lock, verify, which was built into the Bitcoin code almost from the beginning. It's a time lock that you could have done in Bitcoin. And Hex has it built in. And that's the real way to get things working. And to have smoother on ramps is cool, but we don't need to partner with the legacy financial system. We don't need to buy real estate. We don't need to become money transmitters. We need to program a more, basically a better user interface, I believe, that can onboard people without them having to learn so much and having to check so much themselves. And no system will be perfect, but this is, relevant. So at the end of the day, it's so important that, that we stay true to the real principles of crypto, because otherwise it's very easy to consider yourself as, oh, I'm a genius, just because you became a crypto millionaire, not because you're actually a genius, not because you're having great ideas, not because you're making the best music video, or because you're knowing what's best for other people. Remember, the reason why central banking doesn't work is because central authorities can't adapt better than individuals can adapt. And absolute power corrupts absolutely without checks and balances. So freedom of the press used to be abused. There were salacious newspapers and like shenanigans happening there. But I think there were times in history where the truth really set society free and provided that check and balance as well as it could to the political decision-making that was happening, to the financial infrastructure that was being built, to the innovation that occurred in such a way that it allowed the United States to become so powerful, that allowed the first world countries to become so powerful. But we could have a better system, because at the end of the day, Hex is going to pay people about 30 to 40% APY for locking for 6 years. And that's each year that somebody's getting that. So you're tripling your stack if you time lock for 6 years on average. Even though it's a dynamic APY, the fact of the matter is that interest or that yield that you're getting pays for itself, because the system is incentivizing users to time lock, which literally makes the coins more scarce in the here and now. And as that process continues and then grows exponentially more difficult as it's like the mining difficulty in Bitcoin goes up and down based on how many participants there are mining in the system. Same way, the more people who are staking in Hex, the more the t-share rate goes up at the end of people's stakes. And so that difficulty adjustment ensures that all the new Hex that's getting created in the system is only given to people who have participated. And so it's only the people who are time locking, which is that is the definition of how to store value over time, which is the most important principle of money, right? There's like 4 principles of money. It's like, it's a unit of account. It's a store of value. It's a medium of exchange, and so on and so forth. Being a store of value over time is where money has traditionally gone wrong. It's not hard for people to get together and to decide today we're using seashells or beads or US dollars or chunks of gold or silver or space rocks. People are using that as their money. That's the medium of exchange. The hard part is getting people to have a stable unit of account. And that's where we see inflation is cutting into the store of value. It's because through the power of creating your own money, rulers are corrupted by their environment and end up exploiting that store of value. So, for example, I went to a museum in Chicago, and they had the gold coins from every ancient empire. And so they were literally lined up, and you could see every 50 years there was a new guy's face on there, and you could see which empires treated their people better and which ones didn't, because the ones that didn't treat their people very well, they had crummy designs, and they had printed the coins quickly, and then they clipped them down. That's how they used to do taxes, is every time the gold coins changed hands, the king or whatever, the kingdom would like clip the coins down. And that's why they had to put ridges around coins so that you could tell that they weren't cut down. They had to put ridges around the edges of coins, like on the quarter and the dime and stuff, right? So fascinating stuff. But exploiting the ability to print money has happened since the beginning of money. Now, you might ask, what existed before money? And it's strange because money was the first recorded history. So literally, if you go back to cavemen and cavewomen days, if you look at the hieroglyphics and everything from that time, they're keeping track of who owes what. That's the first recorded history. So money predates history. I think, because academics love to argue about stuff and go back and forth, and I'm not sure we'll ever know unless we use the DeLorean that I bought to travel back in time and ask people. But for now, I think it's safe to assume what existed before money was a favor system. So people would do favors for each other. And so I think that's kind of interesting. I think that that's still a currency that we use today. We don't really think of it as a currency, but our reputations, being true to our word. I would say showing up on time, but I'm sorry, today the stream did not start on time because my computer or my camera broke. Brand new camera doesn't work as well as the $80 one. I got an $800 camera that, that's how I've been getting the better video quality for the past week or two, but it won't turn on anymore. So I was troubleshooting that. Mo cameras, mo problems, right? At least in a favor economy, you're staying grounded, you're staying connected to other people, perhaps. Like there are only, so many people that you can do business with. It's got its pros and cons, right? But the fiat system, I mean, that's pretty bad. So as we transition out of the 2.5 billion years on Earth where we've had to live in survival mode and kill other people so our tribe could have enough to eat and have enough resources. And now we have more people on Earth than ever, and we have other problems other than survival. And we have the technology now probably to provide for everybody more than we do, to waste less, to be kinder to our neighbors, to be kinder to ourselves, to focus on our families, to self-improve, to delay gratification. Why is all that stuff so hard? Why is the mental health of the world so poor? Well, it's because the monetary health of the world is so poor, in my opinion. I think it's because the one thing that unites us is also our downfall, and that's the US dollar backing almost every trade that occurs on Earth. But sure enough, financial systems, they evolve over time. And it seems like every monetary era, and people can argue with me about this. I appreciate having people smart enough to argue with me on this. But of course, I made a chart once upon a time that showed in the past 100 years, there have been about, in the past 600 years, there have been about 6 different people controlling the money, different countries. Let me see if I can find it here. Here we go. It's called reserve currencies change. I know one part isn't true. It says that Hex could be the next reserve currency. I'm not sure if it can or not. I think it could. Here we go. Reserve currencies change. So, from 1420 to 1520, somewhere in there, Portugal was in charge of the world reserve currency. Then for a little bit longer than 100 years, it was Spain. Then the Netherlands, less than 100 years. France, almost exactly 100 years. Britain, almost 100 years, maybe 105. USA now has had about 100 years of controlling the reserve currency. Of course, it's not this cut and dry, but at the end of the day, I think it's a good way to zoom out 600 years and make sense of something. And that is that reserve currencies change. So if you want to argue with me on that reserve currencies change, then maybe I don't want you watching the show. Hey, that reminds me, hit the like and subscribe button or get out. And thanks for being here, all of you who stuck around. So very good. Very good. So I mean, like, I'm glad that people have appreciated the rant. I mean, I wanted to keep this episode like pretty short because I've got a lot of stuff to plan for the Hex conference. I've been putting in lots of hours, almost all day, every day, trying to get things ready and ordering equipment, working with Excalibur, creating the schedule, coordinating the volunteers. Very soon, I'm going to probably make a special stream to ask people if they want to volunteer for some of the positions that we have, to check people in. The Hex conference is coming up in 23 days. I already think I made the first landing page for it, but it's really exciting that, you know, as a community, we're going to be able to hopefully do things a little bit better than the Bitcoin community did. We can learn from some of their mistakes. If you've ever seen their conferences lately, I think that there are a lot of mistakes there. Personally, I made it so that we could charge the least amount of money possible, and we were actually going to go into the red and not have 600 tickets be able to pay for the whole 4 full days. But luckily we had somebody who watches the show who donated about $40,000, and that money allows us to buy the merch to give out for free. It allows us to make sure that the speakers, you know, have their tickets paid for if they're not able to pay for it. And for me, I bought my own ticket, but I think it's really important for us to remember, like, that we're still early. And for me, it humbles me, and it like makes me feel like I'm setting a good example when I don't waste money, when I don't overcharge. I'm not taking any profit when it comes to the Hex conference, even though it's a lot of work. And the goal is to break even. And I think that and to get everybody a really good deal. You know, for example, I discovered that it's going to cost about $7,000 to $10,000 to like rent 4 computers for the 4 days. And so I was able to work something out with the venue so we can bring our own laptops. And so we might, and it's going to cost less to just get our own laptops, and then maybe we can give them away at the end of the conference. And that'll be a way that we save value and, you know, act super responsibly. And so, yeah, I think at the end of the day, we know that there was this $4 billion seizure that the government did, and that Bitcoin does not appear to be time locked. It appears to have been stolen by somebody who ended up getting Sun Well syndrome, Heather Morgan, as evidenced by her insane TikTok channel and music videos. What you saw tonight was just the tip of the iceberg. Anyway, I think as a community, it's in our best interest to work together to make sudden wealth a strength and not a syndrome. But if we had it our way, I think that we would want to see a world with so much abundance of resources and of delayed gratification that the system balances itself out and pays for itself, and that all people can live in a world in which their monetary environment and their mental health environment are supporting positive behavior change, supporting delayed gratification, supporting self-improvement, supporting making the world a better place, starting with, you know, not stealing from people by printing more money. And by all the new money that's printed in the Hex system, it's given to people who time lock the most, which is literally, as we discussed tonight, is contributing to the value that's holding the economic value in Hex. And if we stop valuing our stacks in dollar form, and we value it in Hex, or we value it in T-shares, or we've just valued it in, you know, how many tennis shoes you could buy, or, you know, how many gallons of gas or whatever. At the end of the day, the other thing that we need to account for in our lives is how much good are we doing for others, and how much time and energy are we putting into our community, into helping others, into improving ourselves. So with that being said, we're at an hour. Shout out to everybody who watches the episode. Hit the like and subscribe button. Get your tickets to Las Vegas. There are probably some left. I'm going to drop the link for that. And then I'm going to drop the link for all my links, allmylinks.com/ALLin. You can see all the different stuff I'm up to. Please like and subscribe. Stake wisely, my friends. And until next time, peace out.
Who's there, this guy? What's up, Richard Hart? You're up. And you're all hard. That's why your favorite fake, brilliant billionaire investor's here. Listen, Matty Allen reached out to me. And he was like, dude, you look a lot like Richard Allen when you're sitting on a throne with a candelabra.
Thank you for the kind words.
Fantastic. But which came first? The chicken or the comas? I think the comas, because you're a tres comas individual, Richard Hart. You're a guy who fucks in the best possible sense. And Matty wanted me to say, thank you for inventing Hex, which allowed him, the therapist, to buy a DeLorean, apparently, and to promote his future self and mental health on YouTube. Here's the deal. I like people that are nice to other people. I like people saying thanks to other people. So thank you, Richard Hart. On behalf of Matty Allen, you're the human equivalent of a car with doors that open like this or like this. Yeah, Richard Hart.
Great Scott! 2021? Do you know what this means? It's time to buy and stake Hex. We can all be as rich as the original Bitcoiners. My name is Matty Allen. Follow me on YouTube. Let's go. Hex is a coin that allows you to create digital scarcity. The way that you do that is by locking up the coins and earning interest. That rewards saving instead of borrowing from your future self. It's even good for your mental health.
Here, you ain't ready, duck and cover, get inside my dick. Now when it comes to market composition, you don't gotta worry. You gotta take the number one spot in a hurry. 555, hit the return button and make it go live. Liquidating shit bags, you've been leverage trading, you got a monkey on your back. 5555, hit the return button and watch it go live. Though we kill them with kindness, we're not very nice. We building lots of bridges, but they made out of ice. We building all these stupid bridges, they made out of ice. We can melt them down in a quick. Talking shit will get you sweet. In the moment you admit you were wrong, throw you a lifesaver shaped like a hexagon. We'll show you a digital hugs and kisses. We shilling out forgiveness. We never linger on a vibe that's wrong. You'll feel better with a 3-letter hat and shirt on. I wanna see you dancing with the hexagonation. Let's go. Hit the return button and make it go live.
Peace out.